The situation at Gaza's largest hospital is dire. The World Health Organization says the Shifa hospital has been without water for days and is not able to function as a hospital anymore, risking the lives of many of its patients. Israel claims that Hamas has underground headquarters beneath the hospital and is using the building as a shield, a claim the group has disputed. Here's what U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan told CBS News' Margaret Brennan on Face the Nation yesterday.
We can just look at the open source reporting that Hamas is using hospitals as it uses many other civilian facilities for command and control, for weapons storage, to house its fighters. And this is a violation of the laws of war. The United States does not want to see firefights in hospitals where innocent people, patients receiving medical care, are caught in the crossfire.
So for more analysis, we are joined by Vedant Patel. He's the principal deputy spokesperson for the U.S. Department of State. Thank you so much for joining us again. And let's start here with this horrible situation at the Shifa hospital. You've seen the images of premature babies swaddled on mattresses, not getting the care that they need. And quite frankly, all experts say moving them would be a gargantuan task. Near impossible. Is Israel doing enough to protect civilians in Gaza?
Well, first, I would just echo what National Security Advisor Sullivan said, that we, the United States, don't want to see an open firefight in places like hospital, in places where civilians, those with serious illnesses or other medical conditions are getting treatment. That's something we absolutely don't want to see. And our Israeli partners in the IDF have also indicated that they are assessing what options they have at their disposal to ensure the safety and security of individuals like patients who might be getting very serious medical care. But the truth is that Hamas is acting totally out of accordance with international law when it co-locates itself with key civilian infrastructure like hospitals, like schools, like things of that nature. They essentially are using these civilians as human shields, these men and women, babies who have very dire medical conditions and need treatment.
Besides that, there are roughly 400 Americans still stuck in Gaza. We've seen the Rafah crossing open periodically to let some Americans out, but 400 is quite a lot. Why is it taking so long to get Americans who want to leave out? And I imagine they want to leave.
This is something that we're working around the clock. An important thing to remember, Anne-Marie, is that this is not a border crossing we control. It is not an American border crossing. But we are engaging directly with authorities in Egypt, with authorities in Israel, to ensure that at appropriate intervals that Rafah border crossing can be open and that foreign nationals who have indicated a desire to depart are able to do so. And of course, for us, front and center of that are American citizens, and we continue to be in touch with American citizens who remain in Gaza, who've expressed a desire to leave, as well as some of their families.
And so what sort of leverage does the U.S. have in this situation? As you point out, you don't control the crossing. So what are you doing to put pressure on the powers that do to have as many Americans leave as possible?
This is something that we're engaging around the clock. Obviously, there's a number of factors to consider when you're thinking about the logistics of a border crossing, and so we're continuing to work that with our Israeli partners, with Egyptian partners, and others. We believe that there is a shared desire to do everything we can to ensure the safe departure of foreign nationals, but of course, there's safety, security, logistics, and other considerations to take into account.
So even as the war continues to rage on, there is conversation about what happens next, what happens after. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has suggested Gaza should be under the control of the Palestinian Authority. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is not particularly in favor of that. Could this issue cause, or could this cause, I guess, challenges in the relationship between Netanyahu and the Biden administration?
We have been clear-eyed about this even predating these horrific October 7th attacks, that the governance and leadership of the Palestinian people should be reflective of the will of the Palestinian people. And so it's really not up to anybody other than the Palestinian people for that. And that's why you saw the Secretary lay out clearly some principles and contours of what a potential circumstance could look like when this conflict recedes. And in our point of view, a key aspect of that is Gaza, first and foremost, no longer being able to be used as a launching pad for terrorism against the Israeli people, but also it being governed by something that is reflective of the will of the Palestinian people under, of course, the Palestinian Authority and joining the West Bank.
You said reflective of the will of the Palestinian people. If the Palestinian people living in Gaza essentially kicked out the Palestinian Authority, is there another option then?
We are working through this with our partners in the region, and we're taking this step by step. I think what you saw the Secretary lay out last week in Tokyo was an important first step, an important vision to help guide and dictate our day-to-day diplomacy as we address some of the immediate humanitarian needs of the situation.
All right, let me switch topics for you, because the president has a big week ahead of him. President Biden is attending the APEC summit in San Francisco this week. He's expected to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping. There's been a long sort of runway to get to this meeting, with various other members of the administration traveling to China over the last year or so. And we know that the Secretary of State had planned to go to China, and then we had that Chinese balloon debacle. How is the situation in the Middle East, though, going to impact China-U.S. relations? Because it seems like with every sort of diplomatic mission, no matter where it's happening around the world, what's happening in the Middle East is increasingly getting to the top of the agenda.
Yeah, first and foremost, let me just say Secretary Blinken did, in fact, make his way ultimately to Beijing in June. And you're exactly right. In the follow-on of that, we saw high-level engagement from both sides of the Pacific, including leading up to this week at the leader level. And we have long said that as it relates to the People's Republic of China, there continue to be a number of areas where we believe cooperation is in the key interest of not just the both of our two countries, but also the world. Areas like addressing fentanyl precursors, areas like addressing climate cooperation, working to release Americans who might be wrongfully detained. All of those things are areas of importance to us. But beyond that, we can handle multiple things at one time. That is what we do. We're the United States of America. We're the Department of State. Of course, there is a pressing crisis in the Middle East right now that continues to require our round-the-clock attention. But APEC also continues to be a unique opportunity to push for priorities that are key to this country. Just imagine, Anne-Marie, so much of the world's population lives in the Asia-Pacific region. Nearly half of global trade flows through that part of the world. 60% of the global economy exists in that part of the world. So this is a really unique opportunity to discuss avenues for economic cooperation, deepen our partnership with other Asia-Pacific countries. And I know that the United States is eager to have a successful week ahead.
All right, Vedant Patel, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.